The summer of 2025 is marked by a fierce standoff, one that is sending shockwaves through the highest levels of government, business, and everyday life. President Trump's aggressive tariffs have triggered a global economic and legal crisis, upending established trade relationships and rattling financial markets around the world. The administration's sweeping tariffs aim to force fairer trade deals, but have sparked backlash at home and abroad, landing the issue before the Supreme Court. The stakes are enormous, with the future of international commerce and America's role in the global economy hanging in the balance. Lower courts have issued conflicting rulings, creating chaos for businesses and consumers as billions in commerce hang in the balance. Companies scramble to adapt, while investors brace for more volatility. The core question: can the president unilaterally impose broad tariffs under emergency powers, or is this a dangerous overreach of executive authority that threatens the constitutional balance? The Trump team cites laws like the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, arguing that extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures to protect American interests. Meanwhile, opponents warn of a constitutional crisis and a perilous precedent, fearing that unchecked executive power could undermine democracy and the rule of law. An August 1st deadline looms. If no new deals are reached, even higher tariffs will hit major allies and rivals. The pressure is mounting with every passing day. Negotiations are frantic, but progress is slow. Diplomats and trade officials work around the clock, but deep divisions remain. Countries are preparing retaliatory tariffs, escalating the risk of a full-blown trade war that could reverberate for years. American companies warn of dire consequences, from layoffs to supply shortages, as uncertainty clouds their future. Consumers are already feeling the squeeze as prices rise, and families across the country worry about what comes next. This is no abstract debate. It's a real-world drama with profound consequences for the global economy, affecting millions of lives and livelihoods. The world waits as the Supreme Court prepares to decide the limits of presidential power, a decision that could shape the course of history for years to come. At the heart of Trump's strategy is the belief that America has been exploited by unfair global trade. The administration sees tariffs as a weapon to force a radical realignment, using America's massive consumer market as leverage. National security and economic sovereignty are the justifications. If rivals impose tariffs, the U.S. will match or exceed them. The 2025 tariffs, tied to crises like fentanyl trafficking, mark a sharp break from decades of bipartisan free trade. Trump's approach is transactional. Every trade relationship is a negotiation to be won. The goal isn't free trade but fair and reciprocal deals, even if it means destabilizing the global economy. Critics call it reckless, but the administration sees it as a necessary fight to reclaim American jobs and industries. The stakes: America's economic future and its role in the world. The 2025 tariff campaign is sweeping, targeting nearly every major trading partner and industry. It began with trafficking tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China, then escalated to worldwide tariffs of 10–50% on goods from dozens of countries. The EU faces up to 30% tariffs, Brazil 50%, Mexico and Canada over 30%, and even India is targeted. The strategy: create maximum leverage in crisis, pushing countries to negotiate separately with Washington. This high-pressure approach upends traditional diplomacy, replacing patience with ultimatums. The unpredictability is crippling for global businesses who now face shifting rates and targets. Companies must constantly react, unable to plan or invest with confidence. The world economy is now navigating a volatile, tariff-driven landscape. America's trading partners aren't backing down. They're fighting back with a range of strategies and countermeasures. The EU is preparing massive retaliation, targeting over $100 billion in U.S. exports and deploying new legal tools to counter economic pressure. This move is seen as a direct challenge to U.S. trade policies. Germany and France are united in a hardline stance, making a quick resolution unlikely. Their collaboration signals a strong European front against U.S. measures. Brazil scrambles to cushion the blow of looming tariffs, while some officials see U.S. demands as politically motivated. The country is exploring new trade partnerships to mitigate the impact. In Canada, official protests and consumer boycotts have slashed sales of American goods. The public sentiment is strongly against U.S. trade policies, leading to a significant shift in consumer behavior. These actions show countries are willing to absorb pain to resist what they see as U.S. bullying. The global community is rallying together to stand up against perceived economic aggression. China, a primary target, is rerouting exports through third countries, but broader tariffs threaten to close these loopholes. The Chinese government is also looking at long-term strategies to reduce dependency on the US market. If fully implemented, up to 70% of China's US exports could be hit. This would have a profound impact on the Chinese economy, forcing it to adapt quickly. The global response dig in for a prolonged trade war, with retaliation as the weapon of choice. Countries are preparing for a drawn-out economic battle. The world is bracing for a new era of economic confrontation. Businesses and governments alike are on high alert, anticipating further escalations. Alliances are shifting and the rules of global trade are being rewritten. New partnerships are forming as countries seek to protect their interests. The stakes have never been higher. The outcome of this trade war will shape the future of global economics for years to come. US companies are feeling the pain. Profit warnings are mounting as tariffs drive up costs. RTX slashed its 2025 forecast after steel and aluminum tariffs doubled, while GM reported a 32% profit drop and billions in losses. Stellantis faces similar blows, and the entire auto sector is under siege. Some firms, like AstraZeneca, are forced to invest billions in US manufacturing just to avoid tariffs. Decisions driven by policy, not market logic. Not all are suffering. Domestic steel producers like Cleveland-Cliffs are thriving, their stocks surging as imports are blocked. The result, a divided corporate America, protected winners, and a majority struggling with higher costs and uncertainty. Tariffs are reshaping business strategy, investment, and jobs. The fallout is real, and the pressure is building. The true cost of tariffs is hitting American consumers. Prices are rising across the board. Tariffs act as a tax, passed down to shoppers through higher prices on groceries, clothing, electronics, and cars. Even a single tariff on raw materials ripples through supply chains, raising costs for countless products. Orange juice is a case in point. A 50% tariff on Brazilian imports could raise prices by 20–25%. For families, these increases mean tough choices and squeezed budgets. Retailers face uncertainty, unsure how to price or stock goods ahead of the holiday season. The burden falls hardest on lower and middle-income households who spend more on essentials. For many, a 25% price hike isn't just inconvenient, it's a crisis. Tariffs, meant to help workers, are functioning as a regressive tax. The impact is felt at every checkout counter in America. The tariff war has sparked a constitutional showdown. Did President Trump overstep his authority? Over 3,500 companies argue he misused the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, imposing broad tariffs without Congress. In May, the U.S. Court of International Trade ruled against the tariffs, citing the major questions doctrine only Congress can levy such sweeping taxes. The administration appealed, and a higher court allowed tariffs to continue for now, creating legal limbo. A separate D.C. court also blocked the tariffs, intensifying the conflict. With billions at stake and conflicting rulings, the Supreme Court is set to decide, where does presidential power end and Congress's authority begin? Oral arguments are scheduled just before the next tariff deadline. The outcome will shape not just trade policy, but the balance of power for years to come. The nation awaits a historic decision. America stands at a crossroads. Its trade future and global role hang in the balance. The choices made now will echo for decades, shaping not only the nation's prosperity, but also its standing on the world stage. The stakes are high, and the direction taken will impact millions of lives both at home and abroad. If the Supreme Court sides with Trump, presidential power expands, tariffs become a permanent tool, and the U.S. signals a shift to protectionism. This would mark a dramatic change in how America engages with the world, giving the executive branch unprecedented authority over trade policy and potentially sidelining Congress. The likely result? A fragmented global economy, higher costs, and diminished U.S. influence as other nations retaliate and form new alliances. American businesses and consumers could face rising prices, while global partners may look elsewhere for leadership and stability, leaving the U.S. increasingly isolated. If the court reins in executive power, Congress reclaims its role, and the U.S. may return to negotiation and diplomacy. This path could restore balance between branches of government and encourage more transparent, collaborative approaches to trade. This could de-escalate trade wars and rebuild trust, but won't solve the underlying issues of unfair trade. Deep-rooted challenges like global competition and shifting economic power will still demand creative solutions and bipartisan cooperation. Either way, the decision will define America's economic identity for a generation. The ripple effects will be felt in factories, boardrooms, and households across the country, influencing jobs, investments, and the nation's sense of purpose. Will the U.S. lead through confrontation or cooperation? The answer will determine whether America is seen as a builder of bridges or a builder of walls in the global community. The world is watching, and the stakes could not be higher. Allies and rivals alike are waiting to see which path America chooses, knowing it will affect the global order for years to come. The outcome will shape not just trade, but the very nature of American democracy. It's a test of the nation's values, its institutions, and its commitment to shared prosperity. The next chapter in America's global story is about to be written. The world waits to see what kind of legacy the United States will leave for future generations.